If there is business. Not like that. Episode 126, Tipiṭaka, Part 63, in which I will recite Pācittiya, Part 48, and probably 49, and we'll see how it goes. Our special guest today hails from the Vajrayana, the new, remember we did that before? Never mind. Jambala. He is a wealth god. Now, that might come as a bit of a surprise for folks who are only familiar with earlier forms of Buddhism, like wealth god in a philosophy that promotes non-attachment and non-materialism. Well, yes. Jambala is said to be a form of Chenrezig, or Avalokiteshvara, and from the family of Ratnasambhava, also known as the Jewel family. So let's go ahead and tune it on back to Theravada, early Buddhism, this one, and I will begin reading. It's raining today. It's pretty nice. Oh, if this is your first time seeing me, do go ahead and click right there. That will take you to the Tipiṭaka playlist. Better to start with episode 1. For those of you listening but not seeing me, because you're listening through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or some other podcasting app, hello! I hope you're doing well. For those of you on archive.org, well, archive.org, eh? Okay. Expiation, Pācittiya, 48 at one time. The Enlightened One, the Lord, was staying at Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now, at that time, King Pasenadi, sounds a lot like Pasadena, an area where I grew up. I don't think, he hasn't been already assigned to a character, so we'll call him King Pasenadi, of Kosala, came to march out against an enemy. The group of 6 monks went to see the army fighting. You would. Anyway. Then King Pasenadi of Kosala saw the group of 6 monks coming from afar. On seeing them, sending for them, he spoke thus, quote, "Why do you, honored sirs, come here?" End quote. Quote, "Sire, we want to see your majesty." End quote. Quote, "What, honored sirs, is the good of seeing me, since it is the battle you delight in? Should not the Lord be seen?" End quote. People, spread it about, saying, quote, "How can these recluses, sons of the Sakyas, come to see an army fighting? For us it is not profitable, and for us it is ill-gotten, such as we come with the army for the sake of livelihood, on account of child and wife." End quote. Monks heard these people who spread it about. Those who were modest monks spread it about, saying, quote, How can this group of 6 monks go to see an army fighting? End quote. They told this matter to the Lord. 3 dots. Quote, is it true, as is said, that you monks went to see an army fighting? End quote. Quote, it is true, Lord. End quote. The enlightened one, the Lord, rebuked them, saying, quote, how can you foolish men go to see an army fighting? It is not foolish men for pleasing those who are not, parentheses yet, close parentheses, pleased, 3 dots. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk should go to see an army fighting, there is an offense of expiation, end quote. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. Now, at that time, the uncle of a certain monk became ill in the army. He sent a messenger to that monk, saying, quote, I am indeed ill in the army. Let the Reverend Sir come. I want the Reverend Sir to come. End quote. Then it occurred to that monk, quote, a rule of training laid down by the Lord says, quote within quotes, there should be no going to see the army fighting, end quote within quotes. But my uncle is ill in the army. What line of conduct should be followed by me? End quote. Are you going to see the army fighting? No. You're going to help. Sorry. It just seems pretty basic, but it's good they wrote this down for folks like this particular monk to whom the answer is not obvious. Right. He told this matter to the Lord. Then the Lord, on this occasion, in this connection, having given reason to talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, I allow you monks to go to an army when there is sufficient reason for it. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk should go to see an army fighting, unless there is sufficient reason for it, there is an offense of expiation, end quote. All right. So, going to a place, knowing there's an army fighting there, you'll see it, of course, but I guess that's different from going to see the army fighting like a spectator, going to a sporting event, which was how I read it initially. Because obviously the monk that's going to help his uncle who's ill is not going to see the army fighting. But if you're going intentionally to see or visit or for some reason be in the presence of an army that you know is fighting. All right. Little minor clarification, a little Pali to English. Okay. Whatever means 3 dots. Okay, next episode. Pācittiya, whatever it is. Tipiṭaka part 64. I will play the flashback from Parajika part 1. Tipiṭaka part 5, in which whatever was defined and never since has been defined. Okay, monk means 3 dots. Same. Ditto. 3 dots. Put what I just said about whatever here in what I'm saying about monk. I can see the temptation to use the 3 dots. Just walk around saying 3 dots. 3 dots, honey. 3 dots. 3 dots. Anyway. Army fighting means having gone out. Do you hear that? Someone doing a puja. That's the sound of the puja bell. I've got one too. Put that there by Chambala. Right. Yes, army fighting means having gone out from the village, it comes to be camped or marched forth. Army means elephants, horses, chariots, infantry. Well, infantry, surely. But elephants? I guess, okay, that's how they're going to define army. Not every elephant is part of an army. Not every army has elephants. But maybe back in 6th century BC, it was an army, the elephants. All right. An elephant, parentheses, has, close parentheses, 12 men. Wow. Wow. That's interesting. Are they sitting on the elephant? 12 men. Poor elephant. That must be a big elephant. Were elephants bigger back then? Inquiring minds want to know. This wasn't quite as far back as mammoths, but there were people walking around when there were mammoths. Anyway, a horse has, in parentheses, 3 men. Really? I guess one to ride the horse, one to shoot the arrows, and one to tag along. Sure. All right, I'll buy it. A chariot, parentheses, has 4 men. Less than an elephant. The infantry has, in parentheses, 4 men. Really? 4 for the infantry? You could have like 20. You could have 100. There's no limits to it. Well, anyway. I guess that's how it was done back then. Hands on arrows. If he goes to see, there is an offense of wrongdoing. Standing where he sees, there is an offense of expiation. Yeah, okay. So, going to see, is an expression that we would think is like, oh, I'm going to go see the football game. But if you happen to be walking by a football game and you look over and you see the football game, then that's not going to see the football game. However, if you're standing in a place where you can see an army fighting, you're breaking the rule. Even if you're just sort of standing there and you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's an army fighting. I better get out of here. Then you'd probably be safe. You'd say, but Lord Buddha, as soon as I saw there was an army fighting, I turned and left because I know the rule. I mean, for safety's sake, it's a good idea not to stand there and watch an army fighting too. Anyway, if having dismissed from sight he sees again, there is an offense of expiation. Unless there is sufficient reason for it means setting aside a sufficient reason for it. If he thinks that there is fighting when there is fighting, and, in parentheses, goes to see, unless there is sufficient reason for it, there is an offense of expiation. How about helping out the injured? There's a sufficient reason. You can have like a Buddhist Red Cross happening. If he is in doubt as to whether there is fighting, 3 dots. If he thinks that there is not fighting when there is fighting, 3 dots, offense of expiation. If he goes to see one or other, there is an offense of wrongdoing. Standing where he sees, there's an offense of wrongdoing. Didn't they just say standing where he sees, there's an offense of expiation? If, having dismissed from sight, he sees again, there is an offense of wrongdoing. What? Okay, one or the other means one of the 4 divisions of the army, elephants and so on. Oh, okay. So if they're not fighting, he just goes to see the army. All right. I think that's what it's saying. If he thinks that there is fighting when there is not fighting, there's an offense of wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether there is not fighting, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that there is not fighting when there is not fighting, there is no offense. Then I am confused. If he thinks that there is not fighting when there is fighting, if he goes to see one or other, there is an offense of wrongdoing. I just went to see the elephants fighting. I didn't go to see the army fighting. I don't know. Any experts in Theravada? I mean, it's a minor, very unimportant point, but I'm curious. What? What's happening? Why is it an offense of expiation to stand there and watch the army fighting, but it's an offense of wrongdoing to stand there and see one or the other, meaning the elephants or the horses or the infantry? I don't understand. I guess maybe, does anyone understand? Is that just an unknowable thing? All right. I mean, obviously it's not that important to like one's path toward enlightenment. I'm just sort of curious. All right. There is no offense if standing in the monastery he sees, right? If the army's fighting right outside the monastery. If it comes to a place where a monk is resting, or to a place where he is sitting down, or to a place where he is lying down. All right. If he, going along the opposite road, sees it, if there is sufficient reason for it, if there are accidents, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The 8th, meaning the 48th. All right. So yeah, if you happen to be meditating and then you're like, what's that sound? And you open your eyes and, oh, it's an army fighting. All right, keep meditating, that's fine. Or if you're mad. This is like a long list. Yeah, just all the things that it's fine to do if you're mad. Like, you could just have a story about a mad monk just doing one after the other. Like, first, I went and sat in private with a woman. Then, I went in a boat with nuns. Then, I threw my fecal matter. Is what it is. Cheers. Oh, see the Tibetan flags of Darjeeling. That's what we're drinking from today. All right, let's keep reading. Expiation, Pācittiya, 49, or XLIX. XLIX is not what it says. It's XLIX, which is 49. All right. At one time, the Enlightened One, the Lord, was staying at Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now, at that time, the group of 6 monks, here is the king. I don't think the king is in this one, but the group of 6 monks is, so there they are. The group of 6 monks, having gone to the army where there was business, stayed with the army more than 3 nights. People, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, this will be the army staying with the 6 monks. All right, sorry. Quote, how can the recluses, sons of the Sakyans, stay with the army? For us it is not profitable, and for us it is ill-gotten, such as we stop with the army for the sake of livelihood on account of child and wife, end parentheses. Monks heard these people, 3 dots, spread it about. Those who were modest monks, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, how can this group of 6 monks stay with the army for more than 3 nights? And, quote, 3 dots, quote, is it true, as is said, that you monks stayed with the army for more than 3 nights? And, quote, quote, it is true, Lord, end quote. The Enlightened One, the Lord, rebuked them, saying, quote, how can you, foolish men, stay with the army for more than 3 nights? It is not foolish men for pleasing those who are not yet, in parentheses, pleased, 3 dots. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. If there is for a monk some reason for going to an army, that monk may stay with the army for 2 nights, 3 nights. Should he stay longer than that, there is an offense of expiation. End quote. If there is for a monk some reason for going to an army means, if there is a reason, if there is business. Not like that, Flight of the Conchords. All right. It's an obscure reference. That monk may stay with the army for 2 nights, 3 nights means he may stay 2, parentheses, or, close parentheses, 3 nights, but not 1. No, 1 is probably okay. Should he stay longer than that means if he stays with an army until sunset on the 4th day, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that there is more, if he thinks that it is more when it is more than 3 nights, parentheses and, close parentheses, stays with the army, there is an offense of expiation. If he is in doubt as to whether it is more than 3 nights, 3 dots. If he thinks that it is less when it is more than 3 nights, 3 dots. That's some good medicine. Offense of expiation. If he thinks that it is more when it is less than 3 nights, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether it is less than 3 nights, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it is less when it is less than 3 nights, there's no offense. There is no offense if he stays for 2, parentheses, or, close parentheses, 3 nights. If he stays for less than 2, parentheses, or, close parentheses, 3 nights. If having stayed for 2 nights, having departed on the 3rd night before dawn, he stays again. Loophole. If he stays, parentheses, because he is, close parentheses, ill. if he stays because there is something to be done for one who is ill, or if the army becomes invested by the opposing army. Okay. If he comes to be taken possession of by something, if he is invited by an enemy or by a chief. Okay. If there are accidents, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The 9th, meaning the 49th. Well, I mean, the nice thing is I see plenty of room for a Buddhist equivalent of a Red Cross to form, because there's caring for ill. I believe injured counts as ill. So, it's nice. I have no real problem with these rules. I mean, if you're not caring for the ill, then what are you doing spending more than 3 nights hanging around with the army? What's that about? All right. Are the 6 monks in this one? Yes. So you can stay. Expiation, Pācittiya, L, meaning 50 to the ancient Romans. At one time, the enlightened one, the Lord, was staying. That goes in 3 dots. At Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anatta Pindika's monastery, the usual hangout. Now at that time, the group of 6 monks staying with the army for 2 parentheses or close parentheses 3 nights, went to a sham fight, and to the troops in array, and to the massing of the army, and to see a review. A review, eh? They know which is chief for strength. Roll calls, mentions 3 times. Footnote is no help. Then a certain monk of the group of 6, having gone to a sham fight, became pierced by an arrow. Which of you would like to be the one who gets pierced by an arrow? Oh, that's sad. Is it? How bad is it? Well, let's assume that he can still stand. People made fun of that monk. Okay, then he's probably still alive, right? Saying, quote, "Honored sir, we hope it was a good battle. How many targets were obtained by you?" That's funny. End quote. That monk, being made fun of by these people, became ashamed. People, 3 dots, spread it about, saying. So it's interesting how, back in those days, if a monk had a bunch of wool, people would say, "Oh, are you going to sell it? What kind of profit are you going to make?" And back then a monk pierced by an arrow, "Oh, how was the battle?" But then fast forward later, you have monks that are selling things. It's no big deal. And you have Shaolin, where monks are being trained as karate masters and with weapons. So, interesting how times change, eh? Quote, "How can these recluses, sons of the Sakyans, come to see a sham fight? For us it is not profitable, and for us it is ill-gotten, such as we come to a sham fight for the sake of livelihood on account of child and wife." End quote. Monks heard these people, who 3 dots spread it about. Those who were modest monks, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, "How can this group of 6 monks go to see a sham fight?" 3 dots. Quote, "Is it true, as is said, that you, monks, went to see a sham fight?" End quote. Quote, "It is true, Lord." The enlightened one, the Lord, rebuked them, saying, quote, "How can you, foolish men, go to see a sham fight? It is not, foolish men, for pleasing those who are not yet, in parentheses, pleased." 3 dots. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. If a monk staying with the army for 2 nights, 3 nights, should go to a sham fight, or to the troops in array, or to the massing of the army, or to see a review, there is an offensive expiation, end quote. I'm not much of like an army guy. You might already have guessed that. Maybe a review is something that is a common word, and people who've served, thank you for your service. Unless you were serving on the opposite side of whoever I should be identifying with, then I don't know what to say to you. Anyway, whatever. Yes, so yeah, a review. Is that, comment below if you're like, a review is when, I don't know, maybe it's a common thing for armies. That's all I'm saying. If a monk staying with the army for 2 nights, 3 nights means staying for 2, parentheses, or, close parentheses, 3 nights. These definitions, I love them. Sham fight means where a conflict is seen. All right. Troops in array means so many elephants. So, maybe not so many, but like this, a certain amount. All right. So many elephants and so many horses, so many chariots, so many infantry. Massing of the army means let elephants be on this side, let horses be on this side, let chariots be on this side, let foot soldiers be on this side. Oh, like a practice game, like shirts and skins. If you're both, it's like everybody's wearing the same colored jersey because they're all actually on the same team. So half the team takes off their shirts and then, never mind. All right. A review means, oh good, so they're going to explain. A review of elephants, a review of horses, a review of chariots, a review of infantry. The least elephant review, parentheses, has, close parentheses, 3 elephants. The least horse review has, in parentheses, 3 horses. The least chariot review has, in parentheses, 3 chariots. The least infantry review has, in parentheses, 4 men as infantry, hands on arrows. They defined review, but I still don't know what a review is. All right. I mean, in other contexts, I know what a review is. Review your notes before, whatever. If he goes to see, there is an offense of wrongdoing. Standing where he sees, there is an offense of expiation. If, having dismissed from sight, he sees again, there is an offense of expiation. If he goes to see one or other, there is an offense of wrongdoing. Standing where he sees, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If, having dismissed from sight, he sees again, there is an offense of wrongdoing. There is no offense if, standing in the monastery, he sees. If a conflict is seen, having come to a place where a monk is resting, or to a place where he is sitting down, or to a place where he is lying down. If he, going along the opposite road, sees, parentheses, it, close parentheses. If, going as there is something to be done, he sees, parentheses, it, close parentheses. If there are accidents, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The 10th, meaning the 50th. This is its key. Cakes. Talking. 3 on Upananda. And also, parentheses, the family who, and parentheses, supported, parentheses, him, close parentheses. Mahanama. Pasanadi. The army pierced. These 10. The 5th division. That on the naked ascetic. Well, all right. He came up once. Maybe that's just how they're going to designate that group of 10. That's the naked ascetic group of 10. Fair enough. Okay, so we finished another group of 10. And they all seem to be kind of like about different things, like miscellaneous. So maybe the naked ascetic in this case is kind of like saying miscellaneous. It wasn't all about nuns. It wasn't all about food. It was about a bunch of stuff. So, cool. Thank you to the 6 monks for being so naughty as to cause more rules to be written. And special thanks, of course, to Jambala. And he has a rat that vomits jewels. So may Jambala's rat vomit many jewels into your life. wishing you prosperity, because I assume by the fact that you're looking at YouTube that you have not taken a vow of poverty, so probably you would appreciate a gesture toward a blessing of prosperity, right? I know I would. Okay, thank you for going on this ride with me, and I look forward to next time, and I'm very happy to report that it's raining here. Hopefully everybody is safe in the parts of India where the rain might be a bit stronger than it is in Delhi. Stay safe out there. All right, I guess that's it. And I will go ahead and close with my usual closing. Oh, if you're interested, I recently did a episode of our sister podcast. The episode was called Non-Dual, in which my friend Augustin Race and I talked about non-dual thinking and this kind of thing. But toward the end, at the very end, I actually performed the whole meditation that my dad taught me when I was very young, at the end of which is this particular blessing that I close these episodes with. So you're welcome to check that out if you want to. And otherwise, until next time, to the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Live long and prosper.